Excellent. It is Saturday, and I am here, which means I'm probably doing another podcast. Indeed, I am. It is MeanMachineDean, and this is MeanMachine Talks, and I have a very special guest who happens to be on that side of the screen, who I will introduce shortly. Thank you to everyone who is currently joining. If you are here and you would like to learn a little bit more about the gentleman here to my left, he's not actually here because of social distancing, unfortunately, but if you do want to learn a little bit more about him, you can put !podcast, and it will give you a little bit of information about him. Or if you do want to ask a question live, and I do have an iPad sat next to me with some questions already starting to flood in, which is great, put !pod question, and you'll be given a link, fill in the form, and it comes to me, and that's it. Right, my guest is sat to the left. This is Jakub, a very, very cool guy. I'm incredibly grateful that he's given me a small portion of his time, as per usual with most of my guests, who are usually incredibly busy, but he has given me some time. So Jakub, welcome to MeanMachine Talks. How are you today, sir?
Very good, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad, not too bad. I'm glad that we have managed to organise this in a very short amount of time. We have managed to pull off probably the quickest podcast guest that I have ever managed to do. So testament to you for being awesome and allowing me to talk to you today. So yes, thank you very much. So what I normally do with my guest is this is going to be interesting to try. So I'm just going to hand over a fake microphone on this side of the screen. So then if you're going to reach out and grab it. Here we go. Let's see if we can do it. Other way. There we go. Fantastic. And good job. You've done well. And what I normally do is get my guests to do a quick 30 second to a minute introduction about who you are and what you do. So over to you.
Okay. So my name is Jakub or Kuba. I'm with TG0. I'm VP Business Development and Partnerships. At the moment, my main focus is the Kickstarter campaign. I've always been a gamer since I remember. Always been a gadget geek, always been a technology geek, so very excited to bring these controllers, this technology to the wider public.
So yes, as you can see, he perfectly fits the scheme of what I normally talk about, so we are going to have a great time today. So yes, as Jakub has mentioned, his company make awesome touch controllers. But just before we touch onto that, we're going to do a quick deep dive about Jakub's history. So Jakub, going back into your childhood history, a question I normally ask my guest is, what's your first ever gaming memory?
I would say Atari 84. Not entirely sure on the number, but tape-driven Atari. In my neighbors, it was. I'm Polish, so it was imported from the Eastern Germany in the 80s. So yeah, that would be it.
That's interesting you said, actually, because one thing that I try and learn, I've had a few guests from a variety of different portions from the world, is how was the gaming scene, I guess retro gaming in Poland? I mean, I guess in those times computers were kind of very sparse in the home. Would that be a correct assumption?
Yes. So this is kind of my first experience in kindergarten. There were a couple of kind of Chinese imported handheld games with LCDs. So that's another one. After that, in primary school, Commodore 64, that was a thing. Amiga 500, 1000, that was a thing. And then after that, I got not my own personal PC, but the family PC, which was I think a 486 DX2, Quake and Doom, and all the games are listed. Betrayal at Krondor, Civilization 1, that was my childhood.
That sounds like a very good childhood to me. As soon as you said 486, it warmed my heart, because it just reminded me of the same 486 that we had as a family. So it seemed like a strong staple, and the same with the Commodore 64 as well. Another fantastic piece of retro goodness there. But no, I mean that's cool. I mean it's interesting how in different parts of the world the adoption of the adoption of gaming and computing changes from different areas. So, in some countries, the home computer was the thing that dominated rather than home consoles, whereas in some places it's the home consoles and vice versa. So, so yeah, it's cool to actually hear those stories, because obviously, I'm from the UK. I have some background in Egypt. My mother's Egyptian, and in Egypt, home consoles were almost non-existent. It was the kind of the computer that dominated, and then I think for most people their introduction to home computers was actually the PS1. So in different parts of the world everything starts to change depending on, I guess, availability, costs, and so on and so forth. So which was probably the same thing probably in Poland as well. But yeah, I mean, it's cool that you've kind of got this historical knowledge of computing as well, which then kind of comes into to kind of the common or current status of yourself. So I guess, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more about the company you do, but correct me if I'm wrong, but essentially it's the technology is capacitive touch technology, is that correct?
Yes, but a bit different than you might be familiar with. So company is called TG0. We've been on the market for 5 years, so founded in 2015. I've joined last year in September, but essentially the claim to fame or what we do is touch, gesture, and pressure sensing plastics. So yes, it's based on capacitance, but we turn everyday touch sensing, so everyday plastics into touch sensing surfaces. So let's say a mouse or let's say a keyboard is made of plastic. So what we can do is infuse the plastic with a compound called carbon black, and that makes it capacitive. When you touch it, or when you bring your fingers close to it, a signal is generated, and we analyze that signal and provide an output. And that output can typically be used to control technology, and we use that technology or that approach to build the ET controllers.
I mean, that is fantastic. So correct me if I'm wrong, is it any plastic device could be turned into something?
Pretty much. So we typically, when we manufacture our devices, it's injection molded plastic, double shot plastic, but we can use EVA foam and other forms of polymers. The kind of bottom line is, as long as we can make the surface capacitive, we can do the signal processing that is needed for our technology.
I guess that must really open up the door for a variety of different industries. I mean, in my head, I mean, a couple that kind of come to mind, I guess, is I guess automotive is probably one that comes to mind. So would you be able to fit something like into a steering wheel? Is that possible?
Yes. So I don't want to, and I can't really talk about the details of our
Sure.
engagements. But yes, absolutely. Automotive has been very good for us. The thing about automotive is that you can't fiddle with buttons, you can't fiddle with screens. You need to be 100% focused on the road. Perhaps that will change as time goes by with autonomous vehicles, etc. But at the moment, the status quo is that you need to pay attention to the road, and with that, you want buttons or interfaces that are easily identifiable, and you can control them essentially mindlessly or sightlessly, very intuitively. And that's where we come in. So we injection mold door handles, steering wheels, seat controls, dashboard controls with our plastics that are capacitive sensing, touch sensing, but are very seamless. It's one piece of plastic which reduces weight, reduces sound, and also looks quite kind of futuristic because it's not really a button. It can be a seamless surface that you just kind of glide your hand over and it works.
That is really cool. I mean, just for a little bit of background for everyone. So we're about to come on to the actual main product that's kind of got my intrigue. But from what I've seen and of the research that I've seen of this technology, it looks like it's something waiting to explode. So I'm very happy that Jakub's even given me a small piece of his time to actually talk about this technology. But coming on to kind of the modern or kind of the main product of how I discovered it is your VR hand controller system. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that, and I'll put my spin of how I discovered it on.
Sure. So kind of the journey or the story of the controller, because we've been doing our thing in the background, we've been delivering projects and products for our partners. It was always under someone else's brand, and we wanted to kind of do something in our own right under our own brand. And that's how the team behind ET kind of figured, okay, so where can we use this technology to do something cool? And we figured that in VR, when you put on the HMD, the headset, you suddenly lose sight, and you need to be able to kind of intuitively and automatically navigate the controller and kind of immerse yourself in the experience. So we figured, hey, let's do a VR controller, and that's how ET was born. So summing up, it's a VR controller. It's a kind of tube-shaped shape. It's built on our technology. It provides 5-finger independent touch, gesture, and pressure sensing. There's a trackpad up top. There is an LED kind of sensor button, but it's a very elegant device, very elegant form factor that will revolutionize the VR space soon enough.
Yeah, so how I discovered it was, we spoke previously offline about this, which was our good friend and friend of the channel, VR Bug, who actually kind of got me to actually have a look at the product. And as you mentioned, the product has been in development for a while, and if you put !pod guest, there's actually a link to the Kickstarter for the product if you do want to purchase one. And there's a little bit more, well, I say a little bit more information, there's a lot of information which is good to tell you all about the intricate details of these VR controllers. And to be honest, the moment I saw it, I was like, yeah, I agree with this. This is exactly the thing that's missing with VR at the moment. I mean, I've got my Oculus Quest there just in shot, and one of the controllers there. Don't get me wrong, it works well, but to actually have that individual finger control and for it to be pressure sensitive as well, so obviously you're controlling the intensity of if you're grabbing on something, or if you're interacting with an interface that could be coming in the future, so touching something with multiple fingers, to actually have that level of control in something that is very small and light. I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. This technology does exist to some degree with things like the Valve Index controllers, the knuckle controllers. But I mean, from what I've heard, and I'm not having a pop at Valve for this, so before anyone starts saying that, it seems like the build quality of those doesn't seem that great from what I've heard. I know of many people who have gone through quite a few of the thumbsticks itself. Which is a shame, because obviously for VR to be adopted in a lot or a mass, you want that build quality to be as good as possible. So it's a shame that something with as much great technology as that seems to be failing on the one most important thing, which is obviously its stability and its build quality. But from what I've seen, the ET controllers look fantastic, and I'm a backer myself, and to be honest, I can't wait. I'm incredibly excited about this product, and I'm really, really excited to actually see it and actually play around with it. And if you do want to see it, as I said, put ! I think someone's actually done it actually not long ago. All of the links and everything about Jakub, if you want to follow him on Twitter, and the company as well, are all listed there. So if you do want to learn a little bit more about the controllers, please do go and take a look. I have backed it. I believe in this product, so if you are interested, please go and make sure you go and take a look. So I guess one question for myself is what was the choice to pick VR as kind of the main product for you? I mean, as we've said, there could have been a whole host of different choices of product or industries or surfaces that you could have picked. What was the reason for the VR kind of hand controllers?
So before I go to that, maybe let's address why not automotive. So yes, we have a successful business in the B2B space, but automotive in particular is a very tough industry to kind of build a business around. The development times and development cycles for cars are huge. We are talking years and years. So it's really hard to do successful business there. I've touched on this previously. So essentially what the company wanted is to build our own brand and really kind of push the boundaries of what's possible in terms of capacitive sensing, touch sensing, and really showcase our technology, be really open with what we can do. In our B2B space, we have so many great products and projects, but we build them under other people's names, under NDAs and so forth. So I can't really go from company X to company Y, say, hey, this is what I built for these guys. So we wanted to have our own name freely available, bring it to the customers, and we wanted to kind of something that really solves the problem. So ET solves the problem, and we are quite passionate about it. We believe that it can really change the face of VR, and thank you for being so passionate and then kind of sharing our vision. because that's what we want to do. We want to build a community, and we want to kind of progress or build, develop the industry, VR, virtual reality industry.
I guess one of the holding, how can I put it? I guess one of the current issues, which is not just your business but everyone's business, is that I wish Facebook stroke Oculus would open that damn thing up to get people to open its dev side so we can actually get those controllers working with it. Because for those who don't know, Facebook are incredibly secret about unlocking the key on that damn thing so that we can get a variety of different controllers to play with each other. So for instance, the Steam VR system, essentially any controllers can actually talk to each other, and you can use a mix match of different headsets and controllers. But with those guys, they are being very awkward, which is annoying because both of the headsets that I've got are both owned by said company. So come on Facebook, come on, let's have a VR hug, and let's sort this out. You're holding everyone back. Let's unlock the door and get everybody talking and integrating with each other, because I think I honestly believe that headset with your controllers would be the ultimate in my eyes. That would be the ultimate thing, is to have capacitive touch controllers with the Oculus Quest. That's it. I could retire and be happy then. I would have no money, but I'd have an awesome VR headset set up. That's the end dream. But yeah, I mean, as I said, it's a fantastic product, and I think to have those individual finger tracking. From what I've seen, I've seen videos of, I guess it was some of your team playing Half-Life Alyx with it, and I was like, yeah, this is a much better experience than what I'm currently going through. And I was just like, I want it. Give me the controller now. I want this. But I mean, I'm assuming the majority of the feedback you've had so far has been positive from what I have seen.
Yeah, so I think for anyone that has been paying attention to the conversation on social media, I think there are two kind of groups in the community. People like you that are absolutely in love and understand and get it, and are fully kind of all into the concept. But there are people that are, let's say, more skeptical, that they want buttons, they want a more traditional controller. And I get it. I'm a gamer myself, and had I been on the other side of this conversation, I would probably be also skeptical. But because I have a chance to see the team working, and I have a chance to interact with the controllers, and really kind of have first-hand experience on the progress and the immersive aspects, or the way how they unlock the potential for really truly immersive VR, I can speak with confidence that this is really a game changer. So once we go to market, and once everyone will have a chance to freely experience them, I think perhaps the conversation will change a bit.
So for anyone watching this live, as I said, if you put !podcast, you'll get all the information about it. And as I said, there's a link actually there to the Kickstarter with all of the information about the product, and you can actually see it working, which is actually really cool as well. So please make sure you do, check that out. And for anyone who is watching this on demand, likewise in the description, all of the links for Jakub and everything else is there. So I guess coming into you being a gamer, I mean, VR is obviously something that you enjoy, as it would be a bit awkward if you didn't, and you were working on a VR product. So what's your current best VR title besides Half-Life Alyx?
So actually, I don't have a Steam VR setup at home. At work, I do have a PSVR and an Oculus Quest. I'm waiting for the HP WMR Reverb G2 headset. That's going to be my kind of home Steam VR machine. I've always liked harmonics games, so frequency, amplitude. Shit, now I forgot the name. What was it? Audio.
Yeah, I know the one you're on about, and I've just forgotten the name of it as well. Quick,
the one with the guns on Oculus Quest.
Yeah, I've seen that. That looks fantastic. I guess the other thing I wanted to say, and I think it may have been you who retweeted it actually, was the I think it was an indie gamer who's actually managed to make a kind of a Guitar Hero VR game. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, this is it. This This is the thing I want. Like, screw Half-Life Alex. This is the thing I want. Like, if I can play Guitar Hero in VR or a similar thing, that is it. I would never leave the house again. That is what I want.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's an amazing concept in of its own right. I think it's absolutely brilliant. But for specifically for what we do and hand tracking and finger tracking, it's a very interesting use case. And I had a good chat with the developer on Twitter.
Oh, nice.
So the issue with his demo, and he fully recognizes it, is that you need to look at your hands and the guitar, which is not how people play guitar.
Sure.
So if we can get him a controller that tracks fingers very accurately, you can have a much more natural experience.
No, I mean, that would be great. I mean, I guess the closest thing to an actual guitar game was something that was released, I think, back in, don't quote me on it, I think it was 2014. There was Rocksmith, which was basically you would plug a USB cable into, I think it was on consoles as well, but for me, I used to plug it into my PC and then plug it into an actual guitar, and it was like Guitar Hero with a real guitar, and it was quite nice because it kind of almost put it put a nice spin on kind of gaming and learning at the same time. But yeah, as soon as I saw that dev and I saw the video, I was like, "Oh my god, this is why didn't I think of this?" Like, it's such an obvious thing that's currently missing at the moment. Is kind of that Guitar Hero gaming thing, and with kind of the reality of being able to hold a virtual guitar, kind of, you know, times with kind of your finger tracking. I mean, that just kind of makes sense to actually be able to pick chords out with your left hand or right hand, depending on how you play guitar, and then obviously be able to strum with the other hand. I mean, I was kind of sitting there going, hang on a minute, this is what VR was made for. Like, this would be awesome. And then I guess it opens the door for, you know, kind of if we look at rock bands as a potential example, playing the bass, playing the drums as well, and actually using the kind of setup in front of you. So it'd be interesting to see if that developer actually starts to think of different instruments as well. Again, you know, that could unlock the potential to have, you know, wood instruments as well, kind of, you know, the putting your fingers over the right notes and things like that. So it could be, you know, the sky's the limit with something like that. And yeah, when I saw that, I was like, Guitar Hero in VR? Double thumbs up.
Funny that you should mention Rocksmith. Just back to my general gaming background. I think Rocksmith is the low point of my gaming career. Like, I bought a guitar. I bought like, I'm going to learn to play guitar with Rocksmith. I know I played 2 or 3 tracks, and that was it.
Yeah, I think we've all been down that road, unfortunately. My guitar has been sat dormant for about 2 years, but due to the current world climate, I think I will get that back out again. And I was actually looking at Rocksmith the other day, because I didn't actually realise that there's a load of different mods for it now, so you can actually put custom songs in it and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, hang on a minute. But then I'm like, custom songs, I can't really play guitar that well. That's probably not a good mix. Like, get the basics first, then move on to the mods. That's kind of the way my mind's working. So I don't know. Maybe future streams for anyone who's watching, I may get Rocksmith out for a laugh, and you can hysterically laugh at how bad I am at guitar. So there we go. Something for the future. So I guess one question is, you know, where do you think VR is currently going? Do you think 2020 is going to be that? Well, I guess it kind of has to some degree, is that explosion. But where do you see VR potentially pushing to in the future? Because I guess you guys are obviously at the forefront of kind of making this immersive change. But do you see other products that kind of are coming in to make another change? Or do you see VR taking a slightly different path from just gaming?
It's an excellent question, and books and research papers have been published on this. So I think gamers and just people like us will always be on the kinetic edge of technology adoption, and gaming will continue to be a big force. And like how innovation happens in the space, I think Oculus Quest is doing a great job. Valve is also doing a great job pushing the boundaries and the adoption with games like Half-Life Alyx, Beat Saber. Facebook specifically wants to bring it to a more social kind of space, which I think is the future. especially now in scenarios like, let's say, the global pandemic, everyone is on lockdown, shutdown. So we want to have this kind of social experience at home. And I think the technology horizon is obviously not there yet, but I think that's going to be the future. And yeah, that's our big bet essentially. So we made the controllers quite simple, quite easy, quite pick up and play. You don't really need to have a background in gaming, in hardcore kind of VR to enjoy VR. And that's our hope, and that's our bet. And I don't think we'll be wrong. To be frank, I can really speak with confidence here that we've seen adoptions of smartphones, of technology, of 4G, 5G, console gaming. It filters down to more casual users, casual players, and we will see that trend going both on the corporate end, on enterprise training, enterprise use cases, healthcare, fitness, location-based experiences, all will explode, and in-home use for VR will also explode.
No,
not even a doubt.
I think you touched on some really good points there. So, one piece of data that I saw, I want to say just under a month ago, was that VR chat had more logins of users than ever before, which clearly shows that, with the current situation that we're in, people want that social aspect. And as you mentioned, obviously Facebook are making, I've forgotten the name of it, isn't it? Facebook Horizon, that's it. Yeah, so essentially it will be, I don't know, a virtual Facebook where people can kind of come together and collaborate, and it's clearly showing that in times like this, people still want that face-to-face interaction. And some of the things I've seen in VR chat of late have been absolutely brilliant. So there was someone doing language lessons. So they were literally doing like French lessons with a group of people, which is really cool because, you can kind of see who's talking and stuff. And if someone's mispronouncing it, you can kind of then go, one-to-one and make sure they're pronouncing things correctly. So people are actually using this for an incredible amount of detail. There was people doing speeches, there were people doing language lessons, there were people doing, I think someone was doing like GCSE science lessons, which was insane to actually see. And I was like, wow, okay, people are actually really using this for great usage. And I think you're absolutely right that the casual market is clearly the biggest market for gaming anyway. And regardless of what anyone says, the mobile gaming market is the biggest. Yeah, I mean, you've only got to look at something like Candy Crush just to show you the amount of numbers of what people play. And the mobile gaming market and that casual gaming market is just huge. I mean, you look at some of the mobile games. I mean, just have a look, go on your device, look at the App Store and just see whatever the top downloaded games are. I promise you the top 3 will probably be some sort of mobile game. Which again, it kind of leads into VR. I mean, you kind of look at I do with my Quest that's behind me and kind of look at the top games, and 9 times out of 10 it's always some, I would say a casual game or an easily playable game. I mean, you mentioned Beat Saber earlier. I mean, I've put so much time into that game, and every time I play it, I love it. And in fact, I had some guests over at New Year's, and they had never played VR before, and they'd never played Beat Saber before. So I said, well, okay, this will be interesting to see. So I kind of put the headset on them, got them to play like a couple of levels in Beat Saber, and after about 3 goes, they were just hooked. They were like, I don't want to take this off. Because it's so easily accessible and so enjoyable that you completely forget that you're in VR and you're just having this fun, waving these lightsabers about, and you're like, yes, it's absolutely awesome. You do feel like an absolute badass, but it's just, again, it just shows that once you open the door and everything becomes more accessible. I mean, I firmly believe that if that headset drops by another £100, that will probably be the thing that completely ignites VR, because I think it's just slightly out of people's reach in terms of cost. But yeah, I think if Facebook finally unlock the door of that damn thing and we get more of an integrated VR experience, and it allows the developers to actually start developing multi-platform things that kind of like your handsets can actually connect to that as well. I think I can just see this whole thing exploding. But no, I mean, it's great that you have such an inside knowledge or an inside view of VR. But kind of coming back to your product, I mean, we were briefly talking about this offline, and kind of the touch sensitivity stuff, I mean, one thing that kind of came to mind was it being used for those with physical disabilities. So I don't know if you have any use cases or anything like that you wanted to talk about.
Not yet. So I see the potential, and physical disability, accessibility, broadly speaking, inclusion is a big part of what TG0 wants to do and what our technology enables. So because we provide very kind of high fidelity, high resolution finger sensing, and the sensitivity can be adjusted in software. So you can, for a person that, let's say, twitches a lot or doesn't have full control of their fingers, you can increase the threshold of sensing quite high. So only very permanent movement will be recognized. Or otherwise, if someone lacks strength and they need really fine control, you can really pull the threshold way down, that you will have very sensitive response. So yes, absolutely, we are working with thought leaders in the space. Actually, yesterday I had a call with a company that wants to provide stroke rehabilitation in VR, really kind of like data-driven therapy. They already have a headset, they already have other accessories, but they are lacking finger sensing, which is a kind of critical part. And with our technology, they will be able to per finger track how is the person progressing. Can they squeeze hard enough? How each finger reacts? So it's very exciting, and it's a big use case for us.
No, I mean that's really cool to hear, because I mean, one charity that I kind of help out with is Special Effect, and some of the I guess some of the setups they kind of use a Microsoft, I forget the name of it, it's a Microsoft touchpad, basically, where you plug all the connectors in, and essentially it gives you these buttons that can be placed, whether it be on the side of a wheelchair or on the floor. But I guess one of the issues there is that it's very linear, right? It's either on or off. But I guess
Yes.
with your technology, you've kind of got that press sensitivity. So as an example, I guess you could say for a driving game, if you wanted one button on a floor to be the accelerator, I guess depending on how hard they push, that could then obviously correspond into an acceleration. I just thought off the top of my head, this could really be cool for racing simulators, actually. Because I guess
Yes.
one of the things, kind of with I'm in a very small room at the moment, is to have a whole setup of a steering wheel is quite intense, and to actually have like a smaller footprint where you could still actually get that pressure sensitive acceleration could actually be really cool. But again, that translates into with those with disabilities, because obviously if you don't have that strength, as you said, you could still have that threshold adjusted, so that if someone wanted to play something like Forza, which seems to be quite a popular game, to actually have that on someone's foot without it being a linear experience of on and off, and to actually have that level of control still is fantastic. So I can definitely see that being opened up. Is there any other kind of crazy projects that you potentially see people using this for? Like, is there any really like obscure things that you've seen people use this technology for?
So this is an excellent question, and actually a bit of a struggle on our end, because the technology is so broad and so kind of fascinating. And like, just think for a moment, and for your listeners, wherever touch or pressure is generated in your daily lives, most of you are likely sitting on a chair. At the moment, gaming chairs are fairly boring, fairly kind of uninteresting. It's actually the same kind of design, nothing particularly exciting. What we have is a publicly available use case, a prototype we built for Airbus of a pressure sensing seat. So when you kind of move around, we are able to detect how your body shifts and how you move, changes in weight and so forth. So we could embed that in a gaming chair, in an automotive chair. We could build a pressure sensing yoga mat, a pressure sensing insole, shoe insole. So it's really the sky is the limit in terms of applications. The ET controllers are just a first of many products that we want to bring to market. So as you've mentioned at the beginning, I think we are at an inflection point of where this company is and where this technology is. We can really build some cool stuff.
That is really cool to hear. I would love to see. Like, I'm actually sitting on this chair, and I'm like, what would I do? And I'm like, if I extended these arms out a bit, maybe I could have like a volume control on one side, or like a mute button for my mic, or something like that. Like, my mind is starting to go into different places of like where I could actually fit stuff. And I guess it was quite interesting that you mentioned about fitness as well, because I guess I guess this unlocks the door for a variety of different industries as well. And I guess fitness is probably one that maybe isn't looked at. I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I guess you could probably fit it for things like maybe posture. Is that something that could potentially be looked at as well?
Yes. So what I've been considering is, if we look at the concept of the pressure sensing seat, and then you kind of take it further, a pressure sensing yoga mat, still further, a pressure sensing insole, you could, with sufficiently advanced AI and machine learning, let's say we build a pressure sensing shoe or insole. You put it inside your shoe, you start walking, we build a baseline, we build a data set of your normal walking. And then if something happens, if you get injured or even not, predictively, let's say we notice that your left knee or left ankle, the balance is off. So we could kind of inform you that something is off, maybe you are overtrained or stuff like that. So again, the potential for the technology is blowing. Not enough hours in the day to really kind of fully realize all of the use cases.
No, that's really cool, because I mean, a friend of mine is actually a physiotherapist, and he's kind of like a body mechanic, and he's been talking about how this potential technology could come in the future, and obviously talking to you, that's now obviously the case. So and he's done lots of analysis on things like gait analysis, so that's, for anyone in chat who doesn't actually know, that's kind of how you place your feet as you move. And that predictive part, I think, could be key to especially the healthcare for anyone who's had, major surgery on parts of their body, or if they've lost reach of motion in, say, a shoulder, and obviously been able to do that. And yeah, I mean, that's really cool, actually, because now that's starting to get me thinking about things. So, I mean, one thing that I saw not so long ago was kind of how VR could be used for rehabilitation. And especially for me, I mean, when was it? Oh, what was it? A year and a half ago now, I tore my ACL in my knee, which was a bit grisly. And funny enough, VR was actually the thing to actually help my rehab, because, kind of when you're in the world, you can't really, if you've ever torn your ACL, it's horrible, and your motion is just completely finished. But through using VR, you kind of forget the real world. You go into this virtual world, and you're kind of exercising and stuff like that, and your rehab slowly starts to come back. And one example I saw of this was to do with people who have had amputated limbs, suffering with things like the phantom pain, and actually using VR to actually trick the brain to actually think that the limb is there again. And through that therapy has just been fantastic. And, I guess to some degree, if we're using, for instance, your controllers, to have that level of realism and immersion, having those finger controllers, if you have obviously one hand left, further immerses that. And clearly the immersion side would clearly improve the person's recovery. So yeah, I mean, it's crazy, because now I'm just thinking of every possible way that this technology can now be used for the future. So which is great, because it's great that you've got this established platform, and I guess off the back of that allows people to be as creative as they want with that technology. So yeah, I mean, now I'm kind of looking around my room going, hang on, what else can I now turn into some really cool touch capacitive thing that I can control stuff with my house? So yeah, I mean, that's really cool. So I'm just going to have a quick look at some of the questions that have came in now. So AVX Studios, who's currently in chat, asks, what are your biggest challenges behind bringing a VR accessory to the market with main manufacturers offering their own integrated solutions? Great question.
So I think the matter of kind of general community trust, because Valve is Valve, Oculus is Oculus, HTC is HTC. They have their own brand, have been on the market for ages, are building consumer electronics for ages still. And yeah, all of them have their own issues, but they tend to deliver. And we are this kind of small 20-person startup from London, bringing something completely new, completely out of left field, no buttons, no stakes. This guy is kind of on Twitter, on Reddit, spamming threads. Hey, this is awesome. You need to kind of pay attention. And I think that's the challenge. It's really hard to build that kind of momentum and community, uh, uh, being essentially a no-name brand. So that's one challenge. Another big challenge is, or challenge and the risk. So that's I wanted to kind of bring it to the forefront. So why I'm taking this kind of community building approach is that we need to build a critical mass of support quite fast. Because if we don't have developers interested and willing to really kind of build their games and their user experiences, user interactions around ET, it's going to be really tough for us to realize that vision. So I have my own way of building a developer program, which will come online later on. But that community support and people really being passionate about what we do, sharing our vision, is a key part of our success. What else? The big thing, just purely economical business perspective, is that we are a hardware company. We don't have a software store. We don't have a Valve Steam store. We don't have the Oculus store. HTC has their own Viveport store, and countless others hardware manufacturers are building stores. If you've been selling IT software or just familiar with the economics of software, the margins are essentially infinite. We are talking 90% plus margins on software. So you can accept any sort of loss on hardware because you know that if your software platform is good enough, you will get your money back. We don't have that comfort. We tried to make the handset cheap as possible, but we just can't kind of break a certain barrier of kind of economical viability because we just don't have that software capability. And that's it. That's just, we can't break physics. We can't break the just kind of laws of economics. So that's it. That's kind of three challenges that are key to or that we are facing now.
Well, I think it's I think it's really nice to hear you being open and honest, because I guess part of the problem is that you would, talk to someone like Facebook who's got billions of pounds to kind of waste, well, not waste, but I guess to exercise on potential projects, whereas yourself, you're limited by your own funds, right? And the last thing you want to do is invest and it goes south. So it's really refreshing to hear a company being honest and yourself being honest about it, because for most people they would kind of see a company as yourself just being like, oh, this is probably some stupidly rich billionaire who's a bit bored and just wants to put something out there. But hearing that from you completely puts that on its head, and it gives you a real aspect of what it takes to actually put a product out. So thank you for being honest. I think that makes a huge difference. And as you said, the VR community can be ruthless to some degree, and incredibly skeptical, which seems ridiculous that we've, especially myself, I've invested in VR, as we can see. It seems odd that people would kind of have this skepticism around someone who's trying to bring something new and to help improve things, not just on a commercial scale, but obviously on a B2B scale as well. So, which is why I kind of invested in it, because I believed in it, and I genuinely see a lot of positivity coming out of this product and the business itself. So, for all of you skeptical VR people, get on board. Come on, let's not stop being silly here and actually start investing in someone who's trying to make positive change. One thing that was mentioned in chat, and it did actually come to my mind, is that the technology is very similar to, it looks very similar on the outset to a musical instrument setup called a Rolly. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes.
Which is kind of like a keyboard that has something very similar. And then, again, in my mind, I was kind of sitting there going, could this technology be added to existing instruments to add something different? And I was going, okay, this could be quite cool. You could kind of have this additional add-on to, you could potentially add it to a guitar, I guess, to some degree. And I guess I'm just kind of forward thinking. Unfortunately, when I go off the air, I think I'm going to write this whole list of things that I'm going to want to look into in the future. So, which is cool. And people have agreed with you in chat that it's that risk of the unknown. going in there with a brand new product. But I mean, as I said, you've been open, you've been honest, and I think if anyone visits the Kickstarter page, which if you put !podcast, you can go and visit, there's so much detail about everything, and it's completely transparent. And I think that's very rare for a Kickstarter, for it to be as transparent as you guys have. But to testament to the product and your honesty, it's nice and refreshing to see someone being as open about the product and the reasons behind it and the technology and everything there, because it then gives you trust in the actual brand itself, so which is good. And likewise, AVX Studios has actually asked another question, which is when you start to design these sort of products, do you work with existing product APIs, or do you implement your own and bank on the companies like Oculus and HTC example or adopting support?
So this is a kind of a lot to unpack here. So we are building our own APIs, Unity SDKs. We provide a C++, Python SDK. So once the Kickstarter is done, once we kind of hit maturity, we will be opening those up to the community. And now we kind of go to the kind of confidential. So
within limits, obviously, don't get yourself in trouble.
No, it's fine. So for you to understand, we have a healthy B2B business where we do two things: either build custom controllers for company XYZ, or we can always integrate ET with their ecosystem. So throughout the run of the campaign, I've been approached by at least 3 headset manufacturers that want to integrate it with their thing. So those discussions are ongoing. So yes, to answer your question, we hope to kind of integrate ET with as many players in the market as possible. That's how we hit scale. Because we don't have that software component, I'm the Switzerland of VR. I don't compete with HMD manufacturers. Hopefully they are not afraid of us. We are not a competition to them. So I can integrate it with whoever wants us. And that's how we hit volume, that's how we hit scale, and that's how we can reduce the prices and kind of bring you a cheaper, more accessible controller.
Yeah, that's very good to hear. Another question that's come in from Rocksalt9000. Thank you for submitting those questions, by the way, guys. If you do want to submit another question whilst we're on the air, !podcast, the link is in chat. Click the link, fill out the form, it comes straight through to me. So Rocksalt asks, from conception to product for sale, nearly for, well, I guess it is for sale if you class it as a Kickstarter. So from conception to product for sale, how long did the controller, so ET, take to implement?
A year or two. So the Kickstarter page, there is a specific roadmap. I don't remember exactly when the whole project started, but it's been sold as a dev kit to our corporate clients for at least a year. So when I joined in September, I think already 5 companies had them as a kind of test bed for our technology. So I think a year to 2 years is a fair answer, and obviously we are shipping the SteamVR version by December, so let's say 3 years in total. And that development, and we continually update the PCB, make it better, make the Bluetooth radio better, continue developing the SDKs and APIs.
I guess one question, and you are option to answer this or not. Is December still planned, regardless of the current ongoing economic problems?
Yes. So my initial plan was we pushed it back to December, given the situation. We are quite confident that we can hit that goal. We are dependent, obviously, on our supply chain partners. SteamVR, Triad Semiconductors is a big part, or a big, let's say, a risk for us, because VR is exploding. So you have a lot of people looking to buy those chips and those tracker components. So that's a consideration, but we are still very confident that it can be done.
That's good. That's good to hear, because I mean, every industry I know has been hit, and I think you raised a very good point, which is about supply chain. It really has impacted everyone. I guess it's one of those things where businesses fly high until there is a supply chain issue, and then you suddenly start to realise actually how how clever or how smart a business can be with these very unique of times, to say the least. So it's good to hear. It means December is going to be awesome for me. Yay. So I'm very happy. One interesting question that has come in is there any opportunities that if someone wanted to join or get involved with your company, is there anywhere that someone can potentially submit anything to you?
Yes. Give me a second. I'm going to paste it in the Discord. Oh.
Yeah. Grab my phone temporarily, because I mean it's clearly something that people are getting excited about, which is great to hear. There we go. So I'm about to just paste this link into chat. So give me 2 seconds. You're getting me to do this on the fly. See what I do? You can tell this is live. Anyone who says this isn't is a liar. So I'm just about to put this into chat. There we go. So I mean it's clearly something that people are interested in getting getting involved. And you said that you're currently got is it 20 people?
Yes. So I kind of lost track. Maybe it's actually the plan is for us to double. So either 30 or 40 by the end of this year.
Wow, that's really cool. That's good that you've got that growth plan as well. So yeah, it's quite cool that you've actually got that kind of long-term growth plan as well. Because I think one of the issues I've seen through some companies on Kickstarter is they establish, they get the product done on Kickstarter, and then they don't really have that future plan. And everybody's like, well, what's coming in the future? And they're like, we didn't think that far ahead.
So maybe let me clarify, because I think that's an make. I don't want to give the impression that regardless of what happens on the Kickstarter, we'll be hiring. Like, yes, we will be hiring, but that hiring is driven by the growth of our B2B business.
Sure.
The Kickstarter is a kind of pet project of ours. We are testing the waters. We are building a community. So it really kind of depends on how well we do. We've hit our target. We will be delivering in December. But the bigger we go, we can accelerate a lot of our work on the back end.
No, absolutely. I think that's a good thing to state. An interesting question that's come in. I think you're going to admire this one. From Sazzledoom, thank you for joining in chat live. They ask, what games do you play the most on that red Switch behind you, Jakub?
Slay the Spire, Animal Crossing recently.
I knew you were going to say that. Who isn't playing Animal Crossing?
I don't want to kind of be, I don't know, just saying Animal Crossing for the sake of being trendy and kind of on trend. So I don't like these types of kind of sandboxy games. I need a target. I need to pursue, like, I don't know, sandbox free-flowing games aren't really my thing. What else? I play Tetris 99, like
Strong choice.
Jesus Christ, that's such a simple game and so much fun and really kind of so much hours. Like, I love it. What else? Previously, a big one for me was Xenoblade Chronicles. Awesome, absolutely love the experience. But Switch is. I travel a lot for business, as you could probably imagine. So it's just awesome. On the flight, in the hotel, I have a docking station with me, so I spend a lot of time on the Switch.
You've just reminded me of a very funny story, actually. So, as I said, I'm half Egyptian myself, and we took a flight to Egypt. Was it last year? I think it was last year. I can't keep track of dates and times at the moment. But while I was on the flight, I was playing anonymous Goose Game. Oh, sorry, Unknown Goose Game. And, I was sitting there, had my Switch set up, everything was going well. I said, well, I've got about an hour to kill before dinner time. I'm thinking, okay, everything's good. Put my headphones in. Thought that I had put the headphone port in. Turned the volume up loud, and as I was walking around, we hear ha! And everyone's going, what is going on this flight? And then I was like, whoops, I'm just going to put that back in and just slide into my seat. So yeah, for anyone who is on a flight and playing that particular game with a goose, please make sure that you put your headphone in all the way, or you'll think people have a live goose on the flight. So don't do that. That is a public service announcement from me. One question I wanted to ask, actually, is the ET controllers, is it just VR, or could they actually be used for other uses, like, say, for the Switch?
Yes. I think we actually will be supporting the Switch in theory. It is possible to connect them because they use the same standard of Bluetooth. So I think it will be possible. It's not officially announced yet because it is a complex integration to do, but I think it is possible. But what we are doing now is being able to control games on the PC. So one of the key functionalities that we set out to kind of achieve and develop and deliver is that even without the Steam VR trackers, even with the 3 degrees of freedom version, which is essentially an advanced finger sensing Joy-Con, you can connect the controllers to the PC, and we will provide you with a tool software to kind of bind finger movements and gestures to traditional keyboard, gamepad, and mouse inputs. So you should be able to play games. An obvious and clear choice would be Surgeon Simulator, but other games absolutely are also possible. We've seen a lot of positive feedback from the Steam controller community. They are quite technically advanced, quite used to binding different gestures, movements to really quite interesting inputs and outputs. So yeah, for sure, you can play games with ET, like 2D games, pancake games.
No, I mean that I was just thinking off the top of my head because I was just sitting there going, well, hang on a minute, they're obviously Bluetooth. What else can we pair that to? So, and obviously handhelds come to mind because then I guess going back to kind of people with physical disabilities, if they wanted to play a Switch game, I mean I haven't really done too much research myself to be honest, but I guess the Switch probably doesn't lend itself too well to those with physical disabilities, whereas something like ET could be the thing that obviously does. So mapping each finger maybe to a different controller button, that could potentially be something. So yeah, that's quite cool actually. Now I'm just thinking about that. So, and I guess from a PC point of view, I mean you mentioned the Steam controller, and I mean it's one of those. It's funny, I've never seen a controller completely divide people's opinion. I think it's cool. Other people are like, oh, this is useless. And I'm like, well, give it a go and try it. For things like, I mean, how can I put it? I guess if you're using a streaming platform, let's say something like, GeForce Now or something like that, you want to stream like an RTS game, and you haven't got a keyboard and mouse set up, something like the Steam Pad kind of ties that in because obviously you get the controls of a mouse, but in a handheld form. So yeah, I mean, I can definitely see your controllers definitely being used. I mean, I don't know if. Could you use the controllers as, say, like a mouse replacement where you could kind of move in the air and move like a mouse cursor or something like that?
Yes, that's exactly it. So you can use it as an air mouse. You can have a kind of on-screen keyboard and then do text input like that. So yeah, it's one of our customers kind of compared the ET to a complex mouse with more access essentially, which it is. It's an HID device, Bluetooth, low energy. You pop the dongle in, and we will be providing our own software. But if you are a developer, if you have the technical skills, you can really play around with it. We have videos showing them controlling drones. You can use them for much more. We have a guy in Spain that does music production, music performances, like performance art with them. So really, it's if you have the chops for it, the technical chops to really play around with the SDKs, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do.
Time to throw a few over to Jean-Michel Jarre, I think, and see what he can do with it. For anyone who doesn't know, he made a very cool thing years and years ago called the Laser Harp, which, as you can imagine, is pretty much what I just described. So as you break the laser, it causes something. So maybe that's an idea. Chuck a few his way and see if he can do something cool with it. I would love to see that, to see what he could come up with. I mean, I guess that's the beauty of your technology, is that the sky's the limit, I guess, to some degree, because it opens up such a vast array of different things, whether you want to use that for a B2B purpose or you're just at home bored, you want to make something cool. But yeah, I mean, it's, I guess from my perspective, I think it would be nice to actually see what I could actually use it for. Could it be something that I could actually do something cool with streaming with, being able to control my interfaces, or just squeezing something to change scenes or something cool like that. someone's actually asked a question actually in chat whilst I was having a quick look, which was, is the firmware upgradable on the units? I'm assuming the answer is going to be yes.
Yes. So part of that functionality that I just described, binding your inputs to outputs that you want. So it's essentially like a Logitech hub or something. We call it Etee Connect. Part of that will be firmware updates, like troubleshooting, advanced developer tools, and so forth.
Yeah, so a lot of people have agreed with me that the music area could be something interesting to get into. So maybe I've started something there. There we could be. If I see Jean-Michel Jarre with one, I'm going to come back after you and say it was my idea. Okay, so there you go. In fact, a friend of the channel and the gentleman that we mentioned earlier, which is VR Bug, has actually just asked, will you be selling the Steam tracker part separately at some point? Don't know if it's been asked already, just joined.
It's been asked already, well, not on the podcast. I don't want to commit to an answer,
okay,
because it is an ongoing process. So the bit of a challenge that you can kind of notice if you think about it is that if it's a standalone tracker, you need to have a standalone battery, and which obviously increases weight.
Sure.
So we will need to make some compromises in terms of weight. Not sure yet if we are prepared to do that, but we see that there is a definite kind of market need in the community for a lighter, hopefully cheaper tracker for, let's say, full body tracking, knees, elbows, and so forth. So yes, it's on our radar. As I said, I don't want to commit to an answer.
No, sure.
But we know that it's a kind of highly.
No, well, I think that's. I think it's really cool, and I mean, as I said, I think it's really nice that you've been incredibly open about things, because it's always a worry when you have a product for sale, and obviously going on an open platform as mine. There would always be that coy aspect, and obviously you're free to answer or decline any questions that I've asked, which is perfectly fine. But I think for the majority, you've been incredibly open. I think people in chat would agree with me. It's not